Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Anyway, today's the day that I'm going to start doing the journals, working through the journals that Dressed Lebec broke into my house and apparently drugged me to gift upon me. So we're going to start working on that today. The original plan was to start with this journal, which is just aptly titled The Journal. However, I was flipping through the journal TM. Some of the questions at the start just were not starting there. For example, the first question, your story so far. Think about your life so far. What's been a pivot point in your story? Describe the before and after. We don't have time for that. So I thought, okay, well, we'll just skip for that right now and we will go to the next page. The next page was your people. We ain't got time for that either. So we're going to skip through all that one. And I thought, if we can't do that, which is the one that I wanted to do, we will instead start with this beast, which is the Calm Your Anxiety Journal. This was the one that I didn't really want to do. If you saw my last video, this is the one that I was like, I don't know how much use I'm going to get out of this one. But the way that I go about life, and I guess the way that we're going to go about this, is that this is the one that I was most anxious, aptly titled, about. So this is the one that we're going to rip the band-aid off to begin with. So we shall start with this journal today. With that action plan established, let's flick through it, because I actually haven't looked at this at all. Besides, reading the back of it. I think I read the back of it in the last video, but I haven't actually flicked through it yet. May this journal soothe, calm, and heal. May it spread love. May it help connect us to our higher selves. I think if there's one thing that I really don't need in this life is to be any more connected to my higher self, but whatever. And then there's like how many pages is that? 3 pages. I don't think we're going to read the full 3 pages. We're just going to skip through it because I trust they know what they're talking about. Well, I actually have zero trust in that. I trust that they don't know what they're talking about, and just reading that's going to make it even worse than it was to begin with. So for the sake of my sanity, we're just going to pretend that there is not a huge introduction to a journal, because I'm quite uncomfortable with a journal having so many to-do lists and having so many instructions that I need to follow to begin working with. So anyway, the first chapter, because apparently there are chapters in journals. I did not know that prior to right this second, 3 seconds ago now. But there are chapters in journals. This is chapter 1. It is called Meet Your Anxiety. At its core, anxiety is a fear that we learned through experience. It can help to think of anxiety like a stress that is either spread out from the original stressor to include worries, or spread over time to focus on the past or future. Oh my god, there is like another 3 pages. 3 pages of introduction. I don't think journaling is ever truly that serious. But don't worry, we are not going to read it all. If you want to read it, you can buy the journal. It is Calm Your Anxiety Journal by Liza Kindred. As I said in the last video, I don't think that's her real name, but if you're wanting to hear her little tidbits about anxiety, you're free to purchase it yourself. But we're just going to raw dog the first question by skipping through all the instructions, because apparently we are just rebels like that. But anyway, the first question that we will be working with today, the first question in the journal, is how are you feeling about the idea of working with your anxiety? So how do I feel about working with my anxiety? I mean, that's an easy enough question. It's not like I haven't been living in a state of constant existential dread for the vast majority of my abnormally long life. I mean, at this point, it's pretty much my default setting. But working with my anxiety is something that I don't really understand. I mean, most days I feel like I'm barely even surviving it, let alone getting to a point where I become some sort of anxiety whisperer, like apparently Liza Kindred over here is, who has the magical ability, she claims, to turn your anxiety into a manageable sidekick. I mean, is that even possible? Like, how would you go about doing that? Making anxiety your friend, or at least if not your friend, then some kind of coworker that you can coexist with. Anyway, let's just get started on the basics. How do I feel about it? And honestly, I hate it. I hate everything about this idea of working with my anxiety, because to me, anxiety is one of the top 3 worst emotions that I could ever experience. So I try not to experience, because if anxiety was a person, I would probably file a restraining order against it. Like, anxiety is always there in the worst way possible, the worst way imaginable, and it's always there whispering like sweet little nothings in your ear along the lines of things like, hey, did you remember to turn off the hair straightener before you left the house this morning? I know that we're now a 3-hour drive away from the house, so you have no possible way of seeing if you did or not, but I'm just going to remind you so you can think about it for the entire day, and it can ruin this entire experience. Or, hey, do you remember that really stupid thing that you said 5 years ago? Well, everyone else you know remembers it, and they all hate you for it, and they talk about it amongst themselves regularly when you're not there. Because despite what Liza Kindred here wants you to believe, anxiety is already like a bad coworker, one that you can't get away from, and one that goes into the break room every lunchtime and heats up their fish pie. And no matter how many times you tell them to stop because it stinks, they insist on doing it. And it just seeps out and sinks into everything. Whatever. Let me just back up here because I feel like I'm going off on another tangent, which I do way too much. I think the point that I'm trying to make is that, do you know that feeling you get when you're really, really overwhelmed, and instead of prioritizing what you need to do first, there's just so much on your plate that your brain just kind of goes into panic mode, and instead of doing anything productive, it just completely shuts down? Yeah, I feel like that really sums up my relationship with anxiety at the moment. Sort of like an underlying constant buzz in the back of my mind, sort of like static on an old TV that never truly goes away. And I always feel like I'm one minor inconvenience away from having a full-blown meltdown at any given moment. But I've gotten really, really good at portraying the image that everything's fine and dandy, even though, spoiler alert, it really, really isn't. So how do I go about working with that? Well, I guess the ideal response would be to acknowledge it. Something along the lines of, hey, anxiety, I see you, I know you're there, I'm not going to try and fight you anymore. Which sounds nice in theory, except for I can't stand it. I don't want to work with my anxiety. I want it gone. I want to wake up one day and not have this constant sense of doom hanging over me like a rain cloud. But I also understand that that is not a really realistic dream or wish, considering the fact that I know that doom is coming, and I know when it's coming and where it's coming. I just don't want to be stuck here when it does happen. Because every time I've ever tried to push my anxiety away, it's just come back even stronger. It's like that horror movie villain who you think you finally defeated, and then, surprise, in the 3rd act, it comes back even bigger and stronger with a vengeance. So maybe that's the reason why the whole working with your anxiety thing is a suggestion in the first place. Maybe the trying to ignore your anxiety is not the best strategy at all. Maybe it's like quicksand. The harder you try to fight it, the quicker you sink. But still, the very thought of making peace with my anxiety is unsettling. Almost like I'm admitting defeat in some sort of twisted, messed up way. It's like if I say to it, okay, you can stay, then I'm pretty much giving my anxiety permission to keep ruining my life. I mean, what's the actual alternative to that? Just keep pretending it's not there and hope that one day I'll wake up and it will have gotten bored and gone away during the night? Spoiler alert, unfreaking likely. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble again right now, so let's just get back to the point and answer the question. So how do I feel about the concept of working with my anxiety? Mostly scared, and I know that sounds ridiculous because fear is at its core just another form of anxiety, but that's just the truth about the situation. I'm afraid if I acknowledge it, like really allow myself to feel it, that is just going to overwhelm me. It's going to be like opening the floodgates and drowning in it. And I'm scared of that. I'm scared that by working with it, I'm going to just let it further into my life, and I'm barely keeping afloat as it is. I'm scared that by working with it, I'm going to lose what little amount of control I have left in my life. And let's be honest, I didn't have a lot of control to begin with. But you know, if I'm to be fully transparent, and that's kind of the point of making these videos in the first place, I'm also a little bit curious about this as well. I mean, what if, and it's a teeny, teeny, tiny what if, working with my anxiety means gaining some kind of insight and understanding into it? What if I uncover a reason for why I get anxious in certain circumstances and situations? What if there's a reason for it? I mean, not a very good reason, but a reason nonetheless. What if I come to learn that, my anxiety is actually trying to protect me in its own messed up way? It's just really, really bad at its job. Kind of like, Elliot Stabler in SVU, who goes around prematurely punching people in the face and then finding out 2 minutes later that they were actually innocent all along. Like, I don't know, if I could figure out why it was there, why Elliot Stabler is so determined to protect me at all costs, then, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't see it as an enemy. Maybe I would even learn how to calm it the hell down and not have it yelling in my ear every time it perceives even a minuscule danger. And, I don't know, it could just chill out for 5 minutes. But the big hurdle with that is that I actually have no idea where to even begin working with my anxiety. Like, how do you have a conversation with your own anxiety? It makes no sense. And am I supposed to go to a coffee shop and sit down and be like, hey, anxiety, what's your deal anyway? Why are you so on edge all the time? I don't know. It's so silly. Am I supposed to make a pro and con list, about all the ways that anxiety has helped and been a detriment in my life so far? Con, ruined every social interaction ever. Pro, I don't know, maybe helped me avoid making some bad decisions along the way. I'm still kind of weighing that one out. I really don't like it. It's such a weird concept. How are you supposed to befriend something that is literally ruining your life? How are you supposed to make peace with something that constantly feels like it's crushing down on you like the weight of the world? And yes, I'm starting to sound melodramatic, but whatever. This is my channel and I'm allowed to be melodramatic here if I want to. After all, no one's going to watch this anyway. Except for maybe the whole point of this whole journaling fiasco was to get me to this exact moment where I'm forced to sit here and really reflect on all the things that have shaped my life so far. Maybe it's just a big cosmic joke and really the baby god is sitting in the present laughing at me as I'm forced to sit here and reflect upon my demons for his enjoyment. I don't think it really matters though. Either way, I am here talking to a camera about my anxieties, which I guess is better than pretending they don't exist. So anyway, in conclusion, how do I feel about working with my anxiety? Well, I'm willing to give it a shot. And that's not because I want to, and it's definitely not because I'm excited to do it. It's because I really don't have any other choice if I want to go home again. It's kind of like that we're going on a bear hunt book, I can't go over it, I can't go under it. If I want to go home, if I want to get the hell out of here, I'm going to have to go through it. And I do want to go home and get through it, so I'm talking to a camera. And that is so terrifying to me because ever since I've got here, I've made it a real point to keep myself to myself because I know how things sound. But if I want to get through this, I'm going to have to talk to the camera. I'm going to have to be emotional and reflect on my past and be vulnerable and tell things how they went and how they go and how they're going to go. And that is so, so scary. But I suppose that's kind of the point. Fear is anxiety. And if I want to get through this, then I'm going to have to learn to sit with that rather than run away from it. And maybe if I do that way, it will no longer control me so much. Or maybe this is just another one of A's huge cosmic jokes, and I'm just going to end up being more anxious than I was to begin with when all this is over and done with. But hey, no one knows, so just take baby steps. Or in this case, baby God steps. That's it. That is all I've got for you today. Tomorrow I am planning on retelling the story of Nate and how he went from being a cultist to being our resident male nurse. Really, a resident nurse. His male part isn't relevant to him being a nurse, but it just makes me laugh to say that. So that's what I have planned for tomorrow, but maybe not. It's just come and go as I feel like it.